Welcome to 52 Authors, 52 Weeks, Season 3. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. Each week, I sit down with a different author to explore what lies behind the pages. Growth, purpose, finding your voice. Enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of 52 Authors, 52 Weeks with me, your host, Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. Today, I am joined by Stefanie Castro, author of Embers in Our Soul. And I want to just give this caveat. This is book number 4 in this series. Welcome to the show, Stefanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't you tell our listening, viewing audience a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am a author by night. I am a nurse by day, actually. So, and yes, this is book 4 of the Boston Embers series. There are 3 books prior, but each one can be read as a standalone. So that's kind of what's unique about this series is that you can technically read each one in whichever order you like. But I know some readers do like to go in order, but if a trope does stand out to you, you can pick up any of the books in whichever order you want. So I kind of wrote them in that way.
I love that. So you began your writing journey by blogging. Later, you created a memoir, which, for me, writing the memoir was very therapeutic in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But you are kind of connecting your work with families with your work as a registered nurse. What inspired you to um, shift from that world and go into one where you're writing these stories?
Yeah, it was a really unique shift. I did, like you said, I did start blogging, and that's where the creativity spark kind of came from. And so when I wrote my memoir, I learned a lot of how you do indie publishing. And from there, I did have a story that was brewing for years. So in my notes app, I was kind of writing this stuff down, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have this story in my head. And I was like, writing stuff, but I was like, oh, I'm just going to put it there, but it means nothing. And the story just kept like pushing through, pushing through. And then my best friend was like, oh, well, if you have the story, just send it to me. I want to hear it. And like I sent her, she was like, send me a chapter. And I was like, well, it's not a chapter. She's like, well, write it as a chapter. And so I did. And when I finished the chapter, she was like, well, send me more. And I was like, oh, so I sent her another. And little by little, it turned into a book. And so, because I knew how to, um, publish at that point, right? Because I had already written a book, um, it just kind of went from there. And yeah, it was like kind of the rest is history. And so, yeah, and it is kind of addictive after that because stories do come from there because the characters start talking to you and you want to write more. Um, and so from there, I've kind of built a very wonderful team that I do cherish. They're like my little circle, and we work really well together. And so from there, I've really I've gained my following, and I've really enjoyed the process. So that's kind of how I've come to be where I am today. And I have really tried to make my characters kind of like this. I try to make them as real as I can. I try to make my stories as relatable as I can. And then I do put some little twists and turns into my story. But um, yeah, that I hope I answered your question.
You did, and I love that your best friend, pushed you to um, keep going, right? Because we all
Yeah.
need someone in our life that is like, yeah, I love this for you. Let me see this. Let me see more. I'm in
Yeah.
the process of writing my next book, which I don't think I have the creativity to write a book with characters. So my books are self help in nature. And so I went on a girls' trip with my sorority sisters, and I had a draft of the book on the table. And so had intended on being on the beach and reading different aspects of it. That did not happen. But one of my sisters said, "Oh," she was just like thumbing through it, was like, "I like this book." And then I said, "Well, I'm gonna be sending out a couple of drafts. I need some beta readers to read it." And she was like, "Absolutely." I didn't even know that she was a reader like that. So it's always good when you have people who are just willing to help support you in your dream.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. You need those in your life.
You do, you do. So let's talk a little bit about the book. We don't want to tell them everything about the
Sure.
book. So, Embers in Our Souls starts off with what some would call a marriage of convenience.
Mhm.
What inspired you to explore the emotional complexity of falling in love after the vows are actually made? That's a concept that I've kind of
Yeah.
seen on TV with Married at First Sight.
Um, yeah, I actually, so I was challenging myself as an author on this one. So it's actually a lot of the genres that or tropes that I've done before were ones that I've, you know, read a lot about. But this was a trope that I hadn't, I don't usually gravitate toward. So I really wanted to challenge myself in this one because I didn't read a lot of this trope. So I was like, oh, well, you know, um, I really wanted a trope that was almost like new to me, but it's not. I've read it, but I haven't dug deeper into, and I wanted to make my characters a little different in this one because I do kind of like a past present in this one. For people that don't know, I tell their story as they fall in love, right, in the past with letters. And so that's how I tell their story. And so, yeah, this trope, I wanted, so I was, learning how I wanted to tell this story a little differently. And so, yeah, the marriage of convenience, Indiana needed Hunter's help. Um, and so he marries her, right? Right out of high school. But he has to go off to the army. That's pretty much the basis of this. And so, yeah, I really wanted to kind of explore that. But they're really just friends in the beginning. And their voyage of technically falling for each other is all through words. So it's like this deep connection that they have. It's nothing physical at that point. So it's an emotional love that they have for each other, which I think is something so complex. And it's something a lot of people don't do these days, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I really wanted to explore that. A lot of people don't get to feel that. And I wanted to have that between them. And so the devastation of the way that they break up, per se, at one point when they break apart, feels even deeper for Indiana. So, which everyone will learn when they read the book. Um, so I really wanted to have a marriage of convenience and almost like the second chance between them. I wanted to show that in a very different way, but um, because this trope is, it's not something I'm always reading. I wanted it to make it my own. So I think I did a different type of love between them, and it seems like a lot of people enjoyed it as they read it, and as people that had read the whole series did in their reviews, they were telling me like, I think I fell in love with them more than I did the other characters, which I found really interesting. They were my hardest of all the characters to write, um, and I think in the end, they ended up being one of my favorite ones, which I found interesting. Um, so yeah, it was fun.
So you keep using this word trope, and I know someone in
Yeah.
the listening viewing audience is like, "What the heck is a trope?"
Yeah. Yeah. So a trope, especially with romance, we have different like ways of labeling our our books. So we have like main tropes, and then we can sometimes say micro tropes. You might hear that in the romance genres, especially. So tropes are like second chance, age gap, right? If a character is like 10 years older, you might have like enemies to lovers, those would be tropes. And
Okay.
then micro tropes could be like a single mom or like um, yeah, you might just have like little micro tropes that fall in line, like firefighter romance might be in there, or like we have little, and then we sometimes have trope cards that we bring to conventions that you can grab off of the tables and you can like read. That way, if you're just walking by, you can grab trope cards that we put on there. So yeah, tropes are a big thing that we list for people. And it's just a good way, like if you're meeting an author for a first time and this is not, you don't a new to you author, it's a good way to find out what books they have and what tropes they have in their books. So, yeah.
Hmm. So funny
So,
thing, when I was in my 20s, I read a lot of romance level novels. I never heard that word before, but I read a lot of them. Now, they probably were very steamy because I was in
yeah.
my 20s. So once I resume um, picking up romance novels, I'm going to have to keep that in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago that Indy and Tyler's relationship develops through years of writing. How did you approach these using these letters as a storytelling tool to reveal like their true feelings and deepen their connection?
Um, you mean why did I choose that
Yes.
route kind of thing?
Hmm.
So I've written in my previous series, I've done a past present type of storytelling, and I didn't want to repeat that way of doing things. And also in their storyline, I knew that they weren't going to see each other. So I needed to find a way of how I was going to do that. And I didn't want it to be phone calls or video calls. So I wanted to do like, I needed them to connect, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I was like, okay, how can we make it so it's not emails? Like, I didn't want emails to be sent. And I was like, okay, there has to be another way. And so I was like, okay, let's write a letter. I think that would be like cute. And I know that you can send care packages and you can send letters. And I thought that would be a really interesting way um, to do that. So that's what ended up being it.
I
So
like
that's
that.
how I did it. Yeah, but I really wanted it to be past present, but unique because I had already done past present with like going back in time in my last book, but I didn't want to repeat the same storytelling for me. Because being repetitive isn't fun either for me as an author. So I
Mhm.
had to do it a little differently. So,
Okay. So I can
yeah.
tell you that as a parent of someone who's in the military, when he first went in, those letters were really like we wrote him, because we wanted him to know that he wasn't alone. But just to get his letter, which that reminds me, I have one of his letters that I need to laminate. Just getting the letters and you can hear his voice and emotions in the words. It was great, because we couldn't really speak to him on the phone. And
Right.
I think that's something that's lost upon us. I wonder, and I said this to someone the other day, what would happen if for a week we couldn't get on the computer, internet, we couldn't watch TV? What would happen to us? What would we actually do? And I don't know if anybody would be willing to write a letter to their friend or to a loved one.
Right. And I I mean, I come from a time where we did write letters. I have family that is, well, my whole family, aside from my parents, are international. So letters were our way of communicating, to the point where we would write letters and say, be at this person's house on the phone, and we will call on this day. So, it is something valuable. And I think so for me, that memory is still very, very vivid. So I think people don't understand that there was a time where letters were all we had. Um,
Yeah.
and receiving a postcard from someone, like feeling, the ink, on a piece of paper was still very much um, an important thing. So I think letters are important, and I think connecting with someone emotionally on that level is still something I think we take for granted. And it's still something very tangible. I mean, I found letters to that friend that I mentioned that pushed me to write books. I found all those letters that we used to pass, which were our version of text messaging back in high school. I found all those letters that we used to send back and forth. I found those like back when we were in lockdown, I found them. So I have all those letters that we used to send, and I was like, I'm never getting rid of them because they're pieces of time. So I think there's something to it.
Yes, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I can't say that I have a lot of letters that anyone has written me, but I do have a lot of cards.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I have kept some of them, but for some reason, I'm like, when we die, I don't want the kids to have to go through all this stuff. So I kind of have started, purging
Sure.
purging things just so that there's not a lot. Not that I'm, wishing that I die tomorrow, but I just don't want that to be an issue. So Tyler, Tyler's betrayal in the book is kind of like this turning point in
Yeah.
their relationship. Without giving too many spoilers from the book, um, what themes about heartbreak and trust and forgiveness were most important to you
You saying important in what capacity do you mean?
in terms of highlighting through those moments? Like how you wanted the readers to feel, what you want the readers to see.
I wanted them to understand that I wanted them to understand like how broken he was in that moment. I really wanted them to understand that. I'm really a big advocate for mental health when I write. And I think because of my line of work. Um, and I think that's a big thing. And I that's like my big takeaway for Tyler. And for people to understand, Tyler is Hunter. So his name is Tyler Hunter for those that don't know. And so I refer to him kind of like I kind of interchange the names. But um, so that's like my big thing is that when he has this big moment and he breaks things with Indiana, yeah, he is just not in the right sound of mind. Like he is just not himself. And so, and of course, he does seek help and he understands what occurs to him, but it's so much later that doesn't, he just wasn't himself. And so, his mental health was really just not, he just wasn't well. And so, yeah, I'm just a big advocate for mental health. And so that's kind of my big takeaway. So I hope that the audience is forgiving. Um,
Mm,
and
mhm.
so I think that's the big thing is that giving people grace is really a big thing for me. Um, and I'm always that's my big thing with mental health and forgiveness is grace.
I love that. So,
Yeah.
like in the book, years later, the lady, Indy, I couldn't think of her name for
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah.
So she returns years later and
Yeah.
she's dissolving the marriage. I feel like, and tell me if this was your intent, but when that was all unfolding, this was really her attempt to reclaim her voice,
Yeah.
reclaim herself as a person. Like, talk about
Mhm.
mental health. I feel like
Yeah.
she was just like, right? She was
Yeah.
just like feeling like she can move on with her life.
Yeah.
As you were writing that, did you experience any emotions in portraying somebody who was reclaiming her voice?
Yeah, I've had a lot of that. I mean, with all the characters, I have moments of that. I think that there's always a little bit of myself in each of the characters, I think. Um, Very much so. Like, there's a little bit. Each one has a little bit of me, maybe more so in certain ones, but sure, yeah. Um, there's a little bit of that in each of them. But yeah, Indy has a lot of when she has that fire, yeah, it does come through. And I did feel that when I wrote that, sure. Yeah. And
Mhm.
she's a little bit more, I think I don't want to say though, she's she's definitely feeling more vulnerable in the beginning of the book because she's feeling like her parents really did make her feel like her whole life was a lie. And then when you see her years later, because it's more than a decade later, she's reclaiming everything, right? Because she realizes, like, this is not what I want, and I want something better. So she understands what she wants from her life. So she's completely turned her life around. And so she definitely knows what she wants for herself at that point.
I feel like her whole life was an entanglement.
Poor thing. I mean, poor Indy has been through it.
Yeah,
But
I like this
yeah.
entanglement between the love and the loyalty. So first of all, I didn't learn this word entanglement until recently. Like, there's so many words in the English language, but it was like on TV for something. And so in the book, I was like, this is an entanglement.
Yeah, and she's been through it, like, poor thing. Yeah, and she was definitely deceived by life in ways that, I mean, even just one of those things was enough. But she and the one person that stuck by her is the one person that she lost, I would say, forever. So that's what's so devastating by it. So yeah, and my editor always makes fun of me because I always take someone out. So
Hey, that happens on TV. I mean, on like
yeah.
TV series, somebody's gotta go. So
Well, and that's kind of like the big joke of the 80s and 90s, right? They take someone out of the movies or something, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
that was my life in all the movies and stuff that we watched. So I was like, it is happening.
Well,
So
my husband,
yeah.
who is a avid TV watcher, says that art imitates life. And so, you
Mhm.
have this 4-book Boston Embers
Yeah.
series. Do you ever envision this being like a Lifetime series or a Lifetime movie?
I mean, that would be cool. I don't know if it ever would, but it would be awesome.
Well, you
It
never
would.
know, right?
I know.
I've interviewed many authors because this is year 3 of this podcast. So, 52 authors in each year. And many authors, their books, I can visualize them on the screen. So you never know how you could take this into people are recording their own type of situations, how you could take
Sure.
it and make it a mini series that somebody picks up. You never know.
I know. I mean, we can manifest it. So we can put it
Yes.
out into the universe. I love that. Yes.
Yes. So I
Yeah.
have to admit, on Saturdays, I generally will watch a Lifetime movie. Not if somebody's getting, uh, I don't want to use this word because it's going to come up on my YouTube channel. Unalived is the word that they use, right?
Yep, yep, yep,
DOA.
yep.
So, but I love to watch movies that make my heart feel warm because it
Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
it
Like
takes
a
me away from my world.
Hallmark time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. I love
yeah,
that. So we're
yeah.
almost out of time, but I would love to know what's next.
Yeah, so what's next? I'm working. So I'm working on a novella that will complement the Boston Embers series. So it'll be a bookend to this series. So that's kind of fun. I'm working on that now. And then I've got a couple other things up my sleeve. And then I do have a revamp of my If Only series. So I will be re-releasing that. Um, but for anyone that wants to subscribe to my newsletter, they'll get like the most up-to-date stuff um, throughout the year. So that would be like my biggest recommendation, but those are the things that I'm working on. So this next year will be busy. And so I'm really excited to kind of get things going. So yeah,
I
I've got
love
a
that.
lot of writing ahead of me. So yeah, I'll be busy.
So I'm glad you mentioned about subscribing. So tell our listening, viewing audience where they can find you so that they can subscribe and stay in the
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so if you go to stephaniecastro.com, then on there, right when you get onto my website, there'll be a little pop-up and you can subscribe on there. So right when you get on there and you're like scrolling onto my page, a little pop-up will come up. So, and then
So
you just sign right up.
I love that. So I have this question that just popped into my head because you're in healthcare, I'm in healthcare. So you're a nurse, and nursing over the years, I have a family full of nurses, which is,
Yeah.
I tried nursing, but we didn't like each other because I don't really care where hurts, how long it's been hurting, but administration of the whole thing, I'm your girl. But I would imagine, because I want to go back
Mhm.
just a little bit to mental health, that writing has really helped balance you from your day job.
Yeah, I mean, I find that it does balance me. It just keeps me whole. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I do. I love writing. I don't know, I just think books just they just keep my cup full. I don't know. The minute I walk into a bookstore, I'm just like, like I don't know. It's hard not to smile in a bookstore, right? So the same feeling comes over me when I start even writing a book. Even if I'm frustrated over my writing, there is something comforting. I'm always itching to start a new book, like writing a new book. So my editor and my assistant will vouch that I will kick and scream if I can't start writing a new book.
I love
Which,
that.
yeah. So, but you know what? I think it's just a creativity thing, and um, but yeah, I think it's just it's been balancing me, and that I do appreciate.
Yeah, you
So
need that. Your work is extremely mentally draining, because healthcare workers are just beat up, not only by the system, but to some extent, sometimes patients and their families. So I'm glad that we don't just have Stephanie the nurse, that we have Stephanie the writer, Stephanie the creator, the dreamer, right? There's so many aspects of you that makes you whole, and a lot of people need that other persona about them because they're struggling.
it's definitely been a wonderful addition to my life, becoming an author, and it's definitely connected me with some really amazing people. So I've really been blessed in the fact that I've gotten to be a part of this writing world and meeting some exceptional readers out there and authors as well. So I've really enjoyed it.
I love that. Well, listen,
Yeah.
we are out of time. I want to thank you so much for being a part of 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. For those of you who are watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. I can't talk today. Like, subscribe, and share. Until next week, thank you. You've just experienced another conversation from 52 Authors, 52 Weeks, Season 3. The conversation may pause here, but the growth continues. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator, and I'll see you next week.